Hello everyone, thank you for joining us.
مرحبا بكم جميعا، شكرا لمشاركتنا هذا اليوم في المؤتمر الخاص.
Revisiting the Arab Spring, after 10 years of the Arab Spring, we're going to be looking at the status of the street vendors in Tunisia. This is a conference organized by the Islamic Liberty Network, and it's sponsored by the Atlas Network and also FNF for Freedom in Tunisia. I would like to just mention that there is, I'm going to be switching to Arabic now. And for those who wish to listen to this in English, there is, a possibility for that. So just switch for the French channel, which is actually the Arabic channel. Thank you. Okay, so مرحبا بكم جميعا في هذه
Welcome everybody in this afternoon webinar, which is organized by Liberté and Islam Network, and also it is sponsored by Atlas Network and also FNF Network or Organization for Liberty in Tunis office. So we've made it now to get ready for the programming of this webinar, and also, as you know,
المحاضرة أو المؤتمر في ظروف أخرى على المباشر ولكن بسبب جائحة
was programmed or scheduled to be in person, but due to the COVID-19 outbreak and due to the pandemic, so we are meeting virtually, and thus I would like to welcome all the guests, and also I would like to introduce to you the subject or the topic of this webinar, which is revisiting the Arab Spring after a decade of the Tunisian revolution. And also we have a case study for Bouazizis and also the colleagues of Mohamed Bouazizi. We will find out and try to tackle what is the situation of the street vendors in the post-revolution era, and would like to welcome Mr. Ali Salman, who is the Executive Director of Liberté and Islam Network, and also Mr. Munda Yousfi. He's a researcher and he has a crucial role in this project. And also he will have a presentation about this case study that we prepared for months ago. Also, we visited or we had field visits to many of the areas in Tunis and Grand Tunis, and also would like to welcome Ms. Amel Mazik from Kafsa Governorate, and also Mrs. Widat Fandouli from Sidi Bouzid Governorate, which is the governorate or the province where Mohamed Bouazizi had lived. And also during the previous months, we've met many of the activists there, and also we try to hear from Mrs. Widat and Ms. Amel also their interventions. And now we'll give the floor to Mr. Ali Salman for his welcoming speech. So, Mr. Ali, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tasneem, for the introduction. And thank you to all the friends for participating in our webinar today. As Tasneem already talked about the background of the project, I am just going to focus actually more on the introduction of the organization, Islamic Liberty Network, and the context of this organization as well as today's event. So it was almost after 1 year of the Arab Spring and back in 2011 when Islamic Liberty Network was founded in the city of Istanbul. Then it was called actually Istanbul Network. And the main inspiration of founding of the network, and I was one of the 55 members from different think tanks, universities and research associations from Muslim countries, as well as from other countries in the West. The main inspiration was to explore and promote the ideas and policies for freedom and liberty in the context of Islamic tradition, in the context of Islamic history, and in the context of Islamic knowledge. Many times we believe or we perceive that these ideas or these institutions such as free market, religious pluralism, democracy, liberal democracy, come from a very sort of narrow understanding of the Western society, and whereas we believe that this is a part of a universal heritage in which the Islamic civilization has also contributed. And therefore, we wanted to start this organization to promote the debates within Muslim majority countries, looking at their specific context. Of course, then this network was formed, and it has continued. We have organized 7 conferences, international conferences in last 10 years. We have organized many seminars, workshops, published books and articles, podcasts, and videos, which are all available on our website. The idea, of course, is to promote the understanding of these policies. Now, what is, I think, important in the context of Tunisia, perhaps, well, of course, I'm not from Tunisia, so I'll say very little about the Tunisian context, but as also recent events are unfolding, it is important to look back at the problems which poor people in countries like Tunisia, Bouazizis being an example, being a symbol, faced in the hands of a very oppressive state and a corrupt state, which was not giving the economic rights essentially to those people who wanted to participate in the economic activity through hard work. And in many cases, state was denying their rights to participate in the economic life. We believe that while it is important to exercise political rights, it is as important to exercise the economic rights and religious rights as well. Indeed, we are of the opinion that if we can ensure these rights and the state can guarantee these rights in these societies, then this is how we can actually create more prosperous societies within our cultures. And these are the kind of activities which we have carried on. This project and the studies is one of them, which Professor Mondher has very ably led. I'm going to present the findings today. And so I'm looking forward to this discussion. I'm looking forward to how discussion relates to Tunisia today. Hopefully the research which is going to be shared today will bring some insights into the economic aspects of the challenges which particularly Tunisian society has faced. But these challenges are also common elsewhere in many other Muslim countries. And so there will be some examples and some policy lessons to be learned, hopefully, which can be shared widely. Back to you, Tasneem.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور علي سلمان على هذه المداخلة.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Salman, for your intervention.
وكما قال
And as
سيد علي سلمان الإسلام والحرية هذه المنظمة تعنى بالدراسات الأكاديمية.
And Islamic Network is focusing on academic, political, social, and economic studies. And now we will give the floor to Mr. Mondher Yousfi, who will give us what are the insights of his research, which he named it story of two hands, or two hands story. This is the title of the search of Mr. Mondo Yousfi to tackle the situation of the street vendors since December 2010 to the present situation. So now you have the floor, Mr. Mondo. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your invitation. Thank you for the good organization. So today we would like to find out about the topic of community, which is not highlighted in the society, and also they are not speaking about them. They just speak about them during the electoral campaigns, for example. But now we have to shed light on those people, because they see it as criminals that they have to take care from them, and also some will see them like beggars, or like or will sympathize with them. However, we have a third dimension to see this community, so to study this community and to have a research.
من البديهيات، ولكن عندما تعامل السلطات
And when the authorities will deal with those people as they are numbers, and they do not require rights or something like that. So we have to let the government know that they have to deal with this community as human beings, that they have rights, and also they have a language to talk with, and also we are not incriminating them of what they are doing, and also we are not saying that they are innocent, and so we do not take those ways or both ways. So we have a third way in order to study the situation, being neutral. And this is the first objective, and this is the first goal. So this community of street vendors since 2010 till now were victims of media marginalization or media neglect, and also when they are when they took part in the series, the TV series or films, they took part in the comedy scenes in order to make fun of them, for example. So here today we need to say that they have to be a matter of interest, and they have requirements and they have demands, so that they will get rid of the bad situation in order to look for a better situation, also to deal with them with an objectivity, not with a subjectivity, because we should be always not biased. We should always not biased, and also to be neutral. And let's say that if in this in the article that we will see, this article is as a response to what is said about this community, or the social community. And also we should not see this community from a social or an economic dimension, but we have to see it also from a psychological dimension, because they are marginalized. They are not a matter of interest for the central or the local authorities. And so that when they rise, they are trying to revenge for their dignity, and they think that this is the only way that they have is to revenge against the authorities. And this is like a reaction to the bad policies of the government. And this community now is when they rose because of neglect and marginalization, and also the policies which are practiced against them. And also, first of all, they are victims of the coastline development, boosted by the government. This means that the government, they are trying to make the coastline the most rich geographical area, and also to marginalize the unturned areas and those areas that we had visited, and we found many deficiencies in the economic approach there. This is not because of lack of knowledge or lack of anything else, but this is lack of structuralization or structuring or lack of structures, let's say. It is like a heritage from a government to another. So when I visited, so when they visit the coastal governorates, they will be working in the constructions or in many other jobs. However, if they stay jobless, so they have to be compelled to work as a street vendors. And also I met many of those street vendors, and I will show you now a presentation about those street vendors that I have met. So just a moment, please. So do you see my screen now? Okay. Can you see my screen? But I cannot zoom in. I think you cannot use full screen criteria. So this image that we want to speak about these are street vendors, and I selected this image for 3 reasons. First of all, the street vendors, they do not have a static area or a static place in where they are working. So they are street vendors, and they are mobile, you know. So they do not they are not always fixed in one place. So here it makes it difficult to the authorities to deal with them, or which create many problems with the authorities because of the street vendors. They are not always within the same municipal area, for example. So they are from a market to another, from a city to another, and they move with their goods from a municipal area to another municipal area, and they are trying to find out or to look for new clients. And so they are not strange. But they are making solid relationships, solid social relationships. So they meet every day new people and new clients, and they are struggling in their everyday life. And some of them they are selling some accessories or some secondary goods. So they are not selling accessories, or they are not selling luxury accessories or luxury goods. So they are selling just the primary materials which are necessary for the daily food or the daily dress. And this will lead to 2 things. First of all, they are selling the goods in a cheaper prices than the other stores because they do not pay the taxes, for example, or they are not also pay the municipal taxes. So here they are targeting specific clients. Those specific clients, they are the poor community who are not, who cannot afford to buy from the large stores or the big stores of the famous or the renowned trademarks. So here they are looking for this community of clients, and this make them as necessary in the social ladder or social classification or social class. So they sell goods to people from the same social class as them. Now, when we speak about street vendors, we have to look back to this photo or this image. This person is chosen as the most important citizen in the 21st century because he committed an act in a specific time, in a specific area, which led to the rise of many political demonstrations, and and he contributed to the change of the world also, and also which made a shift from the area or the era of submission to the era of revolutions. And he was a street vendor, and today we will speak more about Bouazizis. We'll speak about the Bouazizis as he is an example for what the street vendors do, and also the life of the street vendors, because they have three common features. So first of all is the geographical area. So he is from a poor city in a poor geographic area, and also he is selling also he is selling food, and he is selling also agricultural products like the others. They have three solutions. First of all is the illegal immigration to go abroad. The second option that they have is to displace to the coastal line governments or cities. And also the third option is to work in their town or village or city, and also to work as a street vendor. And here we have to say to you that I'm not assessing their ethical dimension or anything else. So I would like to say just this: these people are forced, they are coerced, they are compelled to be street vendors. Otherwise, they will be either immigrating in an illegal way to another country, or to be displaced to the coastline region. And here the authorities will see that the street vendors, as they are contaminating the landscape, you know, as if we had been in a very wonderful landscape without them. So this is not real, you know, but their existence, just their existence, without committing any act, either verbal act or physical act, they are seen as a contamination of the general landscape of the city by the authorities. And I think that this is This is not the real image of them, of course, but from a symbolic point of view, I can say that the photo or the image that you can see of the municipal officer and Bouazizis, we can make an interpretation of the image. You say Bouazizi is moving his eyes to the right side in order to explore and also to find out what is around him. And also, so they have families and also they have friends, and which or who make them strong against the authorities or the municipal officers. And also from the image here, we can see that Bouazizi is saying that I have family and I have friends and I have a community to defend me and also to overcome all your powers as municipal officers. So let's move now to the reasons which led us to this situation. Now I made it now to make the presentation in a full screen. So those who did not know the Tunisian map before, I would like to say that there is a discrepancy here between all the regions and there is a difference. So here, all the investment are in the gray area or the dark blue areas. However, the lighter blue area are not of so they are not attracting investments, and also they are alleging that there is no good infrastructure there, and there is no sufficient labor hand or qualified labor hand, let's say, in the lighter blue areas, and so that all the investors are always looking for the coastal areas and also the gray and the dark blue areas there. And the state since 50 years, sorry, or 70 years ago, did not fix or did not provide the success requirements for the lighter blue areas. Here, the solution here is the illegal economy or the marginalized economy. And as you can see from the lighter blue areas, most of the lighter blue areas are in the borderline. The border lines they are in the frontiers of the other countries. And also there are many smuggling of goods through these borders. And those smugglers, they are the providers, or they are the wholesalers for the street vendors.
التبعات الاجتماعية أو السياسية أو القيمية أو الفلسفية لما أفعل. أريد مشروعا يدر علي من المال أسرعه وأكثره، وهذا يؤدي إلى احتكاك.
A project, and this project will be rented by someone else outside the country even, and after that they will get the benefits from him. And also there is a developmental discrepancy and difference at the level of the whole country, and also at the social level from the working class to the higher class. So there is discrepancy in the development, as we have seen also in the map, so which lead them to look for solutions, and also the security fist or firmness, which make them restricted not to do something or not to go to a specific place. So here the street vendors in general, sometimes have good relationships with the police when they pay bribery for the policemen, or also the municipal officers when they pay bribery to the municipal officers and to the police and to the law enforcement units. They will establish a good relationship with the street vendors. So street vendors will have a good relationship with the police and with the law enforcement units by paying briberies, and so when they are pushed by rent-seeking economy, developmental discrepancy, and security firmness, so they are forced by the law on the ground, or the law on the real ground, and they have the last solution to be street vendors, and there is always a clash between the law enforcement units and the street vendors. And here in the third point, I would like to shed light on the general situation of the street vendors in Tunisia after the revolution, as they try to make a shift, let's say since the revolution. I did not want to say after the revolution. So here, because the street vendors, or the situation of the street vendors, did not change to a better situation, but they are not now the target of the policemen directly, as before the revolution, but they're still suffering from marginalization. They're still suffering from the poverty. They're still suffering also from bad living conditions, and even worse still, because their living condition has been deteriorating since the revolution due to the deterioration of the economy and also of the social hierarchy, and which created, or which has large impact on the street vendor. And also they do not have a salary, for example, or an income or a social security for them, so they still marginalized and they are out of the legal system. When we start the story of the revolution, we said that the revolution started with a symbolic
meeting. That it started with a symbolic institution between the institution, the authority, the government, through which we speak about the security fist, and those precarious street vendors. So the hope was, since there is, or the first person who started these actions was from this category, or from these vendors, speaking about them as a group of people. So they expected that they're going to benefit from this, that their voices are going to be heard after having been marginalized all the time. But however, what happened was exactly the opposite. They are threatened. They are being accused to be one of the reasons why things went backwards economically, and so on and so forth. From another side, they are accused by the citizens, or some citizens, that we would not have had the change if this category, represented by the vendor who burned himself, So this, when we speak about Bouazizi, for example, is the personality, is a controversial personality. Some consider him as a symbol of freedom, of activism, and others think that he is a curse because he is the spark that lit the change. These contradictions in opinion led to this frustration. This frustration led to a reverse equation, because the transition period, or what we call the transitory phase, led to political problems. So now the focus is on political problems and political disputes, whereas it should have been directed towards economic problems. What is the benefit from a revolution to a simple citizen if it did not give them their own problems, did not resolve their own problems, did not give them their own prosperity? It is it has given voices to politicians, but at the same time, when you think about the elections in all its sorts, political elections, parliamentary, through. We have a question.
Authorities still seize the weights and measures of street vendors, which was a major cause of Bouazizis protest.
Yes, they do that for two reasons. Because the legal authority, I'm sorry, I have not seen the question before, so my answer is a bit late. First, they still are the vendors, the street vendors, they are still outside the law. We still do not have a legislative framework to regulate and give them their rights and freedoms, and shows them their duties towards the fiscal authorities. So the second thing is that the security forces of the security of authorities, I'm going to say it nicely, not all our police officers, dignified police officers, are not all their hands are clean. We still do have the corruption, police corruption. They call for bribe, they ask for bribes, they ask for other sorts of corruption. It is something that is not exceptional to us, and since these two factors are there, this leads to the fact that this phenomena is still ongoing. It does not stop. We go back to the discussion or the duality between politics and economy. I'm going to go back to the questions after the presentation, and then let's carry on. Economy and politics, what we mean by that is the following. We have not seen in the first decade a real treatment to the economic problems. We have not seen speech, or we have not seen a discussion about development, about the economy. We only heard the politicians discussing about their own political disputes. They speak about the municipal councils, the elections, the type of system, or the type of or the constitution. All we've seen only that. We've seen the discussions on what is the social model, the economic, the political model that we want to endorse, and this was on both official and non-official spaces. I mean, the official by official media outlets, between by the institutions, official institutions, and unofficial by the people, by the people, the citizens themselves. We have seen this dialogue, this futile dialogue, because if we call it like that, because it still did not bring about, or it was on account, or it replaced or showed against the economic demands of the citizens. The problem of the people is that they don't have things to eat. They are hungry. It's not their problem is not the political regime or what is the political system that's going to be installed. So we should have been fighting for them, fighting the problem of poverty, of marginalization. So this, all in all, led to the further marginalization of these precarious workers and street vendors. We move to the following slide. This is a space, a scene, a landscape, a beautiful landscape. We've seen nature, we see nature, we see the beauty of nature. We see things that are not natural. Theoretically, this is a municipality market. A municipality market that where the street vendors, they come in, they sell their goods, and then they leave. Why did I choose this image to show you? Is because it shows the chaos. This is exactly the situation of the people of this category of vendors in Tunisia. They are still outside the law, they're still outside the regulation, they are still outside the economic chain, and this leads to complete paralysis of their activity. They are here present in the picture, not themselves, but their deed. Same thing, they are present, but they are not present themselves in the scene. They have not seen the fruit of this of the revolution, and this is what happens in reality. But we speak about it, but we do not speak for it. We do not conduct a real study to resolve their issues. In our study, for example, we've gone to them, we've spoken with them, and most of them said that they do not deal with the authorities, and that the local or regional or central authority comes to them, visits them, listens to them, and then they go. They do not do anything. They listen to the demands, but they never do anything. They never act upon them. We've seen that. We've heard that in one of our visits to a village called Khmouda, and they said to us that the local authority does not even know them. One of them, it was a lady, and she said she went to the authority like 10 times, but no one answered her. This emptiness or this void, I wanted to show it in this image. You see the impact of this activity, but you don't see them. This void leads us to the fact that they have become a security threat, because I don't deal with them as an economic problem. I should deal with them as a threat to social peace. We don't find dialogue that is led by economists or social experts or human rights activists. No, we find discussion or dialogue with them or the only contact goes exclusively through the security fist. So the authority challenge was the political stability, and of course, because they were and they still are living activism for the protection or for the changes, but the demands of this are still the same. They only protect themselves against any further revolutions or any further street demands. This leads us to that to the deduction to the conclusion that their approach is the security approach comes from their fear of the power of people who go to the streets for demonstrations, and their demands are still there since 2010, but not just 2010, but I say from 1956. Here is the caricature. It shows the psychological situation of of what's going on. These people, they have three choices. One is irregular immigration. Second, work in construction or as a street vendor. And the third option is extremism, which led all these people to despair. These people do not see a future for themselves because their economic activity is vulnerable, is precarious. That is why it is not guaranteed. They do not have social security. It's unstable because they're always under the mercy of the security fist, under the mercy of municipal police, and they are facing an unknown future, which leads them to despair. From the various opportunities that I had to speak with them, they see the final solution for them, or the alternative, the only alternative for them, is immigration, irregular or illegal immigration. So the situation is a psychological resistance, not just economic. It is a romanticist would say we want to find meaning in this chaos. In other words, it is making up a parallel meaning to the official story or the official narrative of the government, of the system. That the official narrative of the state or the government is that we are a government of a country of freedom, of rights, but socially and the social and economic situation, or the people or the citizens are paying the bill of this despair. Their own hope is eradicated. They want to create a life. I'm not here saying glorifying what they're doing. I'm not encouraging anyone. If they had, I support the creation of alternatives for them. But if the government or the state did not, they turned their back on me, so I have the right, or I am going to go to this street vending job. In this context, the context of social problems, it gives us the following. What we see here is a syndicalistic demonstration. It says that it shows that we failed in 2018. We failed to find our own grocery bags, meaning that we're unable to fill our grocery bags. We're unable to put food on the table. Since the grocery bag is empty, our purchase power is down, so the people could not put food on their table. And this shows us that we failed in 2018, that the economic policies have failed. First, the number of these workers or street vendors has risen. Second, as we said before, that they are these politicians or the elite is the least touched by these prices. This leads us to speak about the following. I am fully aware that the economy is going through a crisis since or difficulty since 2010 to 2018. This is not an exception in Tunisia, but it is not only as a result of what's going on. But I wanted to speak about a specific thing, which is this one: the benefit on the debt. It is the number of debt benefit that the government is spending or giving to the donor or the bank that lent them the money. It doubled more than twice, and this is a threat. Since 2010 to today, it is in one decade. It doubled more than twice. The situation in the Tunisian families are in debt of over 60% of their salary, of their income. And this means that their purchase power is going down, and that the prices are going up, and that this is going to be a commercial framework that is suitable for the street vendors, because they don't pay taxes, which means that they're going to be an alternative solution to this deteriorated purchase power. But this does not fall into the wheel of the economy, and it is, as we said, a parallel economy, and then it goes back to their suppliers. Their suppliers, they are the ones who benefit most from this economy, or from this precarious economy. But these vendors their situation is still not so good. The last part of our research is the general frameworks of the street vendor in Tunisia. The methodology of the research, we chose the regions in our visits in terms of the border marginalization mine. And then, of course, we speak about the geographical space. We speak about this line between Sidi Bouzid, Qasrin, and Gafsa. This region, or this district, is suffering from social marginalization. And I remember very well that the word that was mentioned over and over in a resounding way is the marginalization. The word marginalization, whether it's local, regional, or central. So the street vendor is a victim of marginalization and is a means of resistance against this marginalization, because he or she chooses, or is obliged to choose, and I hope you notice the nuance, he is obliged to choose a framework or a parallel economic field, because it's he or she does not have any other solutions. These three regions, they have in common one thing, which is very respectful natural resources. But since there was the failure of the administrative policy and the economic or political policy, it is these areas, even though they have natural resources, their experience is an experience of resistance to the center, to the central authority. We have this makes us deal with the situation not from a central position, horizontal position, but we had to listen to activists, civil society activists there, from so that our conclusions come from the people themselves. And what we've mentioned, either they are conclusions direct, or we've taken through the context of our visits. Our discussion sessions or focus groups were with we tried to we're on the interests of these areas of their issues and then the issues of the street vendors in those areas, because they are a social category that we cannot speak about their interests and their issues without speaking to them and to what is surrounding them. And the outcomes of what we've looked into are, we speak about first the weakness of economics development. So it is a creation of a means of suffocation to the value of to the value of this economic activity. It is there is success, economic success, but it's to the suppliers, not to the vendors. It is an economic map that shows the economic discrepancy between the different districts of Tunisia. Second, the deterioration or the rise of poverty lines. The rise of poverty lines is because poverty is wider and deeper, meaning that the poverty rate or the poverty percentage is higher than the previous percentages or the previous numbers, which is mentioned in the statistics, but also because it's it is larger in variety. The employee in Tunisia is not enjoying the same living standards since 10 years ago, or more than 10 years. We could say that some employees, public employees or private employees, are living in poverty, meaning that they are suffering. They're not able to put food on the table, to overcome and juggle all economic expenses. Let's let alone the people who do not have a job. These are the employees we're talking about. They at least they have social security, but if we speak about the social vendor, the street vendors, they are in a worse situation. So what we're saying is that the poverty is deeper and has a larger variety. And on the contrary, contrary to what is expected, even though the demands of the revolution of the streets were economic, and we did not see any development in the unemployment rate, and particularly in these areas, and this goes back to the same reasons we've mentioned before, especially especially that the elite is focusing on the political disputes rather than the economy. We've spoken about the education and the professional training. They say that the lack of professional education or professional training is failing to bring about or to qualify people to get jobs, to find a decent job, whether in the public or the private sector. And this pushes them to work in the parallel economy. And statistically, we can say that the education system is the quality of education is available in some areas, but not in all the areas. Not all areas enjoy good quality education. The situation has changed since 2010 and 2018. In the Ministry of Education, it says that the student drop out since 2018. Between 2010 and 2018, the number of school dropouts is 1 million. 1 million pupils dropped out of school. It is a scary number. It is roughly 120,000 every year in a decade. So it's over 1 million. This is it is very logical that we could say that a large number of these dropouts, they go to smuggling, they go to extremism, or they go to street vending. We've spoken over and over about the idea of the regional development plan, that these people are victims in these areas. They are victims. If this model, if economic model or development model was fair and there was social justice in it, we would have seen better numbers. We cannot read this outside of the political scene and the economic scene. We've spoken about political chaos that the legislative problems and legal problems led to one focusing on the politics rather than economy, also on to the people are no longer interested in politics. They are looking for a way out. And these, as we said earlier, they do not enjoy an equal opportunity in employment or in prerogatives or in social security or in a future or in hope. So they are going to be victims in this system, in this chaos, especially that the rule of law, according to the rule of law, they still in this rule of law they still have a deep emptiness, legislative emptiness, that their sector is not regulated. They do not have any outlets or ways out. Now we speak about the legal and administrative weight. We've seen this over and and over in our dialogues and discussions, it is said that these areas, that the legal and procedural complications are very paramount, meaning that the legal texts are very ambiguous. They do not provide solutions, and this is what we call bureaucracy. So every administration says that this is not my prerogative, this is not my job. If you want to get something done, or you want to get a license, for example, to work, they would say every administration would not claim responsibility, and every administration you go to, they say that it's the other administration. And many people we've spoken with, they say that they have met the people in office, and they say that it's not their job, it's not their prerogative, they're not supposed to do that, they're not supposed to do this. And at the same time, between all these lines and ambiguous texts, they have a problem. They could not do anything. We now we could not reproduce or bring an approach to fight corruption, which leads to the further corruption of the corrupt, because they find a suitable ground or suitable legal gap that allows them to practice their corruption, which worsens the situation of the citizens, because the local authority does not enjoy its own resources. This also leads to, or another point is that the annihilation of the individual approaches locally, because the individual approaches at the local level, they are not met with good regulation, or this central model does not allow any individual approaches or individual attempts to come out of this. As far as the researchers, we have to orient our searches. It has to go through a field search. It does not go through hotel rooms or meeting rooms or television, without speaking directly to the people, without visiting them and seeing firsthand how they live, how they're suffering, because the research that does not start from the ground up, it does not lead to any area, it does not lead to any result, and it does not show or represent the real situation. And also it has to focus on 6 sides: political, economic, psychological, political, and symbolical and psychological. The responsibilities of the people in office, they have to use their to assume their responsibility, and we have to work with the people in office. We've been told in our meetings that there is no attempt, there is no plan or strategy to find a solution for this. That is why for the people in office, they have to have participatory, effective planning, because it's going to have an impact on the social texture. Without it being participatory, it's not going to go anywhere. For the activists, the recommendation is that their activism should be local and should be coordinated. The activism is we're not speaking about the activism under AC in rooms that are very equipped. We're speaking about field work and activism that has to go through local and coordinated work. They cannot say, for example, that the street vendors should have soft skills, for example. These people cannot find dinner. How can you ask them to sit in a training room and learn soft skills or marketing or skills on how to negotiate? So there is a problem of priorities here. For the street vendors themselves, recommend, or one of the recommendations is that the representation and study, it has to be under a frame of representation, it has to be organized under a framework of representation and study. This field can have it can be organized under one framework, that every line needs to be in one sector, every sector needs to be together locally, and it should be represented locally and regionally and centrally. The problem is not dealt with only at the central level, but it is mostly has to be resolved locally, regionally, and centrally. The outcomes is that this category are no angels or demons. They're only simple citizens whose problems need to be resolved, because their problems are the repercussions and are the cause of other problems, political and social, and so on and so forth. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much, Professor Monder, for these outcomes and recommendations. And I would like to thank all the people who participated in this research. And I would like to mention that this search paper is in English and in Arabic and will be available on our website.
يتعلق بهذا المشروع الذي قمنا به. وعلى ذكر هذا المشروع، طبعا سنقوم بحلقة نقاش بعد قليل، ولكن قبل ذلك أريد أن أشارككم نقطة مهمة جدا في هذا المشروع، ومرحلة مهمة جدا، وهي مرحلة الانترفيوهات التي قمنا بها مع عدد كبير من الباعة المتجولين في كل ولاية من ولاية تونس، 24 ولاية. وفي هذا الفيديو لنا فيديوهات مختصة في كل ولاية، ولكن في هذا الفيديو جمعنا أهم النقاط وأهم الإجابات المهمة التي رأينا أنها مهمة من
interviews that we've seen or evaluated as being important, and we put them together in video. Let's see it together. In this video, the voice is in Arabic, and there is text translation and subtitles in Arabic. So it is a video in Arabic and subtitled in English.
ما عاد شيء، ما يتحصل شيء في تونس. هذيك الخبز التونسي رقوا على ربي وكاو وسط ربي. ولا مستوعب. طبعا هاي السيم مش تسهل بشغل كده. أنا مستعد شوية. أنا مش مشروع. 27 الثورة كانت سياحة، وكان بدل ياسر الخدمة بدلت ياسر ولبست السياحة. والله في كلتا الحالتين مش فقط. نحن ديما نحسوا فما قطيعة ما بين المنتصر والدولة التونسية. هذه بيجيني شوي، هذه شوية عربة بتصير كده لك شوي. بس نرجع حتى برو. بقول يا ربي كل عام قصة، عام فوق، عام نص، عام نقطة. الحمد لله ديما مشكورة صح. بس يا ربي ورضاك. ورضا واحدة بخير. إن شاء الله أخوي ربي يسلمك بخير. شكرا غالية. سعيد. بككم. بك عليك. والله لا والله يعلم ربي في الحياة. ستيمانية خالي ستيمانية. خرجت السيسي. سموت ملك وطلت السيسي. ما خرجت ثلاثة ابتدائي. شيء ما تكوينش تكوين. خرجت منها على غير كتبها هذا خرجت. عمري 31 عام. متخرج. حبيت نتوكل على ربي ونحل في مجال نصيبه وحدي. متخرج بغدادي زيك القروان فكرتين زيك منذ 2009. خوتي خدموا فيا يعاونوا فيا شغل به خويا. ما نجمش نحكي لك علاش خاطر كيما قلت السلسله مربوطه ببعضها. ما نجمش انا ما نجمش نعيش باش السلسله مربوطه ببعضها. يقول لك مع بعض فما عباد راك تلاش تفسر لك اما عادي تعرف كيفاش تفهم. صح ما لاباس ما يبنيش العباد الحق ربي. هذه قلتولي ما يصيرش مع روحي انا مش نسرق ولا حاجه. نظرك العباد شنو هي نظرك العباد؟ مش يمشي على روحه وصبح على خير. الناس اللي تخدم من عندي ناس يكون معهم ونقضي من عندي حاجه ما عندهم عباد يشجعونا معناتها كنخدموا يشجعونا. ديما الانين. انا اخوي نعكس مره اخوي بلديه مره حرس كل مره كيفاش نقولها اخوي. الشرطه البيئيه قالوا لنا خص الوسيله نتاع انتصار قصينا 50 الشهرين 45 دينار وانا قاعد نقص فيهم ولا بيش. هما يخدموا واحد كرر وفرر وما يشيل واحد نار وما يشيل واحد نرجع هذيك هي الحياه. انا مش ما تعرف ملف الثاني ما نبي يوجد السيف هذا فما شيء سنه تتقلق انا تعرف مش هتطلع معك الساعه لا صفه قانونيه لا رخصه. اعطينا رخصه اخوي ندفع ديات واعطيني رخصه اخوي خلينا نوكل صغاري انا خير. يعطيني معلش اعطيني رخصه اعطيني رخصه اعطيني اي موضوع وخلص الدنيا ونمشي مرتاح ولا مرتاح. عندي وظيفه الصغر لا تمد ولا رايح كمان بس نظف بلاصه ويمشي له وخلاص. انا وليد واحد يعطيني رخصه. فكره مثال السوق ولا يشوف فيه سمسار يبقى للحاكم ويا خويا ويتساعر عنده متر بدينار 5 ولا 10 مليون كل واحد عنده بلاصه يخلص بالشهر ولا بالعام ولا بالنهار تربح الدوله ويربح المواطن.
Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. أود الحديث بالعربية عفوا.
Would like to speak in Arabic, sorry.
أتمنى أن تكونوا قد استمتعتم.
I hope that you enjoyed this video.
الحزن يعني لا أريد أن أقول كلمة استمتاع حرفيا ولكن هو يعطي نظرة على وضعية البائع المتجول في تونس كما تحدثت سابقا.
Tunisia, and as I said before, we filmed those videos in the 24 governorates in Tunisia in order to get the idea, and it is published in our YouTube channel of Islam and Liberty Network. You'll find many other videos also, but this video in which we get together all the important interviews with the street vendors, and also there is another phase in this project which is most important, and also and after the research paper conducted by Mr. Mandor, and the workshops, the on-site workshops that we organized in many areas in Tunisia, like Thmouda in Kasserine, in Sidi Bouzid, Mdilla in Gafsa Governorate also, where we had those workshops, and we had been welcomed by many activists in the presence of many associations and street vendors themselves. Also, we had fruitful training days, and Mr. Mondor also he mentioned that in his research, and I'm glad also to thank and appreciate Mr. Amel Mazek, representing the Association of Hurriyat min Ajli al-Bina, or Liberties for Construction. Association, which helped us to meet the members of the association, which is one of the most supported associations in this region. And I would like to ask her to give us her insights in relation to the street vendors in Tunisia. And so the floor is yours, Ms. Amel. Thanks, Aslim. First of all, I would like to thank Liberty and Islam Network, headed by Mr. Ali Salman, and also to you and to the technical crew.
كذلك بالنسبة لسي منظر يعطيه الصحة نشكروه في بحثه الذي لم يترك
for his research, because he didn't let for us any gap to ask about it, as he is very comprehensive, and also just would like to clarify who are the street vendors. So the street vendor are a group of young people or of persons who are jobless, and they are compelled in this life to find a living, and also to be a street vendor despite of the problems and the obstacles that they will find. They are compelled and forced to be street vendors, because this job or this profession, let's say, does not require high capital for them. So with a small capital, with a small amount of money, he can find this job, and also due to the high taxation that we have here, he will find himself that he will flee from the burden of high taxation, and also his social condition led him to practice this job, and also to get this job to afford his leading. And what added salt to the blood is the pandemic of COVID-19, because we were waiting, and our aspirations were towards the decentralization, and also to looking for the marginalized areas. However, we are going deep and deep in this marginalization, and also that there are also many problems related to the pollution of the municipal markets, and also the mediators and the mediators in the markets who are trying to collect the taxes. Also, the tax collectors. There are many problems also related, or many problems that arose with the tax collectors in the markets. So the problems are accumulated, and we have many other problems in relation to the street vendors. So thank you, Mr. Amal. Thank you also to all that we have met in Mdilla city, and also would like to thank also Mrs. Widat Fendouli from Sidi Bouzid. Would like to thank her for her participation, and I will give her the floor in order to hear her or to hear her words. Hello, everybody, and welcome everybody. The street vendors is a very interesting topic, and I think that Mr. Mother also had said a lot about this topic. Thank you, Mr. Mother. And as you know, the jobless, we have many graduated people who are still jobless, and they are compelled by the circumstances in which he is living in order to afford for a living, and also to be a street vendor. And the politicians in our country, they did not pay any attention to build a good system, or to build or to find a way for them. They are always looking for sterile policies that cannot lead to hiring those people. And also, as you know, Sidi Bouzid, Gafsa, and Kasserine are the regions in which there are many natural resources, but there is a lot of unemployment. And let's say that Gafsa is the worst example, because we have the phosphate there, and the phosphate in Gafsa as a natural resource is not well exploited and is not made and also we've just got the cancer from the phosphate, but we did not get the employment. And also Sidi Bouzid also, there are many newly graduated and also older graduated people, and they are now street vendors. So we cannot blame them. We blame the state. We blame the government, because the government is not respecting itself, is not respecting the people. And after the revolution, we did not see anything positive except the clashes between the politicians. And also they said that it is an Arab Spring, but we're still waiting for the Arab Spring, because we did not get the spring yet. And also the Bouazizis lost his right even after his death, because the number of the street vendor is doubled twice now after the death of Bouazizis. They should have legalized the situation. And also most of the street vendors, they are regarded by the others as thieves and as criminals, and also I would like to say that those people, most of those people are graduated from the universities, but they are victims of the state. The state is destroying those graduated people, those university graduates, and they are the state is protecting the corruption. The state is protecting the corrupted people, but not serving the youth. So they are trying to compensate and to give compensations for some of the political parties, but they are not thinking about how to compensate for those people or how to give those people their rights. So we need to give the rights and also the equal rights to the street vendors, and also to look to them in another way for their life. And starting from today and henceforth, sorry, I think the connection is not good with Mrs. Widad, or it's my, I think that the centralized governance is one of the most problems, but I think we lost the connection, you know. Mrs. Widad, if you can close your camera in order to hear you more clearly, you know.
Hello.
نستطيع سماعك. نعم.
We can hear you, yeah, but you can go on.
نعم.
You hear me now? So we have to go further and further with the participatory approach and the municipalities should adopt this participatory approach and to cut with centralization in order to give power to the local authorities and also the municipalities in order for those municipalities to boost and to advocate the development and the local communities are the solution now, and we can rely on those local authorities and local communities, but we do not have any future future view, or we do not have any programs also for the street vendors, if they can think that how can they build stores, for example, or shops for the street vendors in order to get them a job with dignity, and also you can also get rid of the parallel economy or the illegal economy, because those who are smuggling the goods, they wouldn't find a way how to sell it to street vendors. So when you sort out the problem of the street vendors, you can in indirect way to sort out also the problem of goods smuggling. But I'd like also to shed light on what Mr. Mondo had said during his presentation with a good and very good comprehensive way. Thank you very much, and I appreciate also what Mr. Mondo said, but you have to know that what Mr. Mondo said is the fruit of our meetings with you, and also what we heard from you, and when we visited you, and when we communicated with you. So now we'll move to the Q&A session, question and answers. And I think there are many questions to Mr. Mondo and also to Mrs. Widad and Ms. Amal. So if you want, we can kickstart of the Q&A session, and we'll give you the freedom. Who would like to start first in questions?
Please, Mr. Tom, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ali. I put my questions about weights and measures that I put in. You got an answer for. But what the core of that question was that Mohammed Bouazizi, one of the things that really weighed on him was the fact that through his religious belief, he needed to be accurate in the selling of his goods, so he doesn't cheat anybody. And that seems to enters into an issue of the moral question of people or the authorities being able to seize something that religion has a religious basis. Could somebody comment on that? Has that changed? Have they done something to react to that, to change that sort of, I'll call it criminality on the part of the authorities?
I'm not sure I got your question right. Let me just rephrase it and tell me if that's it. If it is, I'll be happy to engage with it.
Thank you.
Sorry for the debate terminology. Well, from what I understood is you're telling me that there is a moral point behind the act that he did, so he didn't want to cheat, and his weight was confiscated by the authorities because they didn't want him to cheat. That's it.
Well, I considered they were confiscated because it was part of harassment of the authorities against the vendor.
Yes.
It wasn't about him cheating or not. He was trying to not cheat, and they took away his ability to accurately, weigh and measure out his goods. And I was just wondering, has anything changed? Since that seemed to me a core issue that he had, and where he took his own life was because of that. Whether anything has changed because of what he did on following his religious convictions.
I see. All right. 2 points on that. I think the first bit is saying that from my knowledge of the event that happened and similar other events that happened afterwards, because in the paper there are already mentions of at least 3 other self-immolations by street vendors, 2 of which were lethal. So this is not something that is one time happened. No, it happened afterwards. And I think it's not really about his ability not to cheat. It's rather about dignity, because he was not only denied his work, that is, some say, and I have to say that some say it's a narrative, that he was physically attacked during this event. So that is why he felt that this is a violation of his dignity. And that is why he protested in front of the authorities' headquarters. And that protest led to many others. And obviously, because of tribal components, that area has, wait, why am I answering in English?
Is go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, they're translating.
Okay, because I just realized that I probably should be answering in Arabic, but that's never mind, okay. So, yeah, because of one thing in that area, in that region in general, which is the tribal component.
في هذه المنطقة.
And that tribe is a majority in the region, and each violation or any violation of one member to that tribe is considered a violation to the overall group. That is why when he was protesting in front of the headquarters, there were his relatives with him. And because of that, it gained a critical mass, if you want to use the Gramscian term, and it became numerous enough to actually form a protest and a form of pressure. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you very much. It helps expand my understanding of that critical situation in the Arab Spring uprising in Tunisia. And I've looked at it. I've appreciated what Ali Salman has been doing. Maybe I'll see him again in Grand Rapids here in a couple of years, or maybe someday I'll be back in Istanbul and be able to see him. So thank you all what you're doing. And I'm pretty passive. Today provided me an opportunity to join in, and I really compliment the work you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great to hear from you, and be happy to see you here, part of our event. Yes, I am also looking forward to see you again in Grand Rapids, hopefully next year or a couple of years.
شكرا جزيلا سيد توم على السؤال.
Mr. Tom, thank you for your question.
ومرحبا بالأسئلة.
And also we are welcoming all the other questions from the other part.
يقدم سؤالا أيضا فليتفضل.
And also he had a question, so the floor is yours, sir.
All right, Tasneem, maybe I wanted to ask a couple of questions, and just first of all, like building on what Tom was just saying, what has changed, if anything has changed at all in the last 10 years since the Arab Spring. Although the political event seems to suggest that the economic policies have not changed and they have not become, open, and in terms of, reforms have been missing. But I would like to request Professor Mondher to shed some light on, changes, legal changes, if there are any legal changes or policy changes which have been brought in last 10 years, especially addressing the issue of street vendors, but also because street vendors are part of an economy widely, so they can't, isolate. We can't isolate them, as have to be a part of the overall economy. So, any reflections on that from you?
Okay. Probably 3 points on that. Thanks for the question. Now, legally, there were some initiatives to make it more centralized, to give this category some rights to give them like headquarters, for example, to make sure that they do their economic activity in a more protected way, let's say. Okay. However, many of those remain just initiatives, that is, remain just texts, because there is a grave issue in terms of decentralization in Tunisia, that there are plenty of laws, but the application of this is not very valid because of two reasons, at least. One is that there is a prerogatives issue, in that it's not clear who gets to do what, so that the central, regional, and local authorities often fight, and I already mentioned that in the presentation, who is to be responsible, because they translate the question as who is to blame. So each of them tries to avoid being part of this, to make sure that eventually they are not to blame, and to make sure that it's always somebody else's mistake. Now, in terms of practice, there has been some interest by NGOs on the topic, and there was a form of local pressure, and we've seen that already in Bouzid and Gafsa, and they managed to reach some form of agreement with the authorities, so that the authorities are willing to help in this. But the authorities will tell you that we are willing, but we cannot, because we lack the budget and we lack the human resources to do this. So when they want, they can't, and when they don't want, they can't. In both situations. Well, it sounds a little bit pessimistic, I know, but I would say that there is a little glimmer of hope, in the sense that the third point of the answer is that there is growing, slowly but surely, the culture, the overall mindset that I have rights and I have the right to defend them. As a result, people are starting to protest more, to accept the status quo, the oppressive status quo less, and therefore we have people no longer submitting completely to figures of authority, which is what is happening these days, and even in previous years. We have plenty of sit-ins, we have plenty of protests that are basically of a demanding nature. That is, they want something. They're not interested necessarily in reform in the entirety of the country, but they are interested in a local problem. Say, for example, Lady Amel already talked about the issue that takes place in Bouzid, for instance. Okay, what is Bouzid? Eventually is an agriculture region, right? So if these agricultural lands are invested on appropriately, they would be very well fertile enough to respond to the needs of not only the region, but most of the country as well. But because of corruption, because of nepotism, because of despotism, because of, what's the word I'm looking for? Monopoly, yes. Because of monopoly, what happens is that people are less willing to invest in the very laborious field of agriculture, and they would go for the easier, between parentheses, field of trade. However, it's not much easier because of the complications that I told you about. So to sum up, yes, there is a beginning of a change, if I can say, but it's very slow because of bureaucratic complications and because of corruption, basically, with the mentioning that the Right Honorable Gentleman asked about the authorities, right? The police authorities especially. We still have plenty of problems with them because, unfortunately, not a few of them, and I'm being nice here, not a few of them are refusing to respond to the epistemological needs. That is, they are not willing to acknowledge that people have rights, and they are still using the same old rhetoric of law enforcement, but in such an abusive way that gives them too much authority at the expense of the citizens. I hope this answers.
Perfectly, very clear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question though?
Sure.
And this is actually, when you were presenting, I was struck by one thing which you said about the enrollments and education. When I visited Tunisia a couple of years ago, the team shared with me the history of education, especially during the the rules of two dictators before the Arab Spring. That and during those times, the governments were particularly invested in making sure that the population is educated and literate, and so we have good quality education and also good quality health there. But what you said, in last 10 years, there were like 1 million children went out of the school.
Dropouts.
Drop out of school. So what's happening there, and why? Can you throw some light on that?
Okay. Yes, there is a section on I think the second part of the paper on this, and it's saying basically 4 ideas. One, the value of education as a concept is less and less and less and less, because it's not as lucrative or as rewarding as it used to be, because they can see success examples in society that are not necessarily very highly educated. So they see that the long established link between higher education or good education and social affluence is no longer valid, or is no longer a given. The second bit is that you mentioned rightly, talking about big numbers of people in learning. That's a numerical issue. What do we mean by that? Numerical issues, in the sense that, yes, we do have plenty of people at schools, but one, the quality of education is not that high. That is why they leave, or they stay, but they're not benefiting that much. The third idea is that you have a new trend that is, well, it's not really new, but it became more prominent in the last decade, in the sense that something is muting himself. Okay, so eventually we're having a trend of private education. And this private education is starting to be present in younger ages or younger age categories, which led to further discrimination or further disparity between those who can afford the private education institutions and those who cannot. And therefore, this led to the disparity we're talking about. Plus, we have an issue, which is the fourth point of my answer, which is related to the vocational training. Vocational training education, it has two problems in Tunisia. One, the business network is not that high. So it's not guaranteed for somebody who did vocational training to find a job. Plus, there is a social prejudice against this category of education by accusing them or believing that they are less achievers than those with the academic education. So people are not very encouraged to go to these fields, although they are less likely to remain unemployed if they do vocational training than they are if they do academic training. So eventually they win, but they are discouraged because of psychological, social, and political considerations. So eventually education is unfortunately heading towards the wrong direction, is trending in the direction of numbers over quality and privatization over national institutions, public national institutions. Plus, the outcome is not that promising anymore. And I'm here both talking as a researcher in this point and as a teacher at university. I can testify to this in both capacities, let's say. So, yeah. I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you. Although I'm not against the idea of private sector providing education, but I understand your explanation quite well. Thank you.
Yeah, most welcome, most welcome. I'm not against it either, but I'm just saying that because of the economic crisis, less and less people are able to afford it, and especially because of the low quality in the public sector. Many and more people are forced to do it, even though they don't really afford it in the usual situations. They would resort to it as a last option to save their children, which adds to the problem instead of just solving it.
شكرا جزيلا على هذا
Thank you
السؤال
so much for this question,
المتميز.
for this exceptional question and the exceptional answer. And let's move to the next question from Amel Mazak.
دخول المرأة إلى هذه المهنة، يعني كما رأينا في الفيديو السيدة التي كانت تعمل كبائعة متجولة.
The lady who was working as a street vendor in Sfax governorate, when we've seen it and we've had questions to the street vendors, how do you see the future of this profession, especially that women entered this sector with all her problems and so on and so on and so forth? The future of the profession. Yes, I have a double-sided answer to this question. Now we speak about a challenge, future challenge. I see it going.
وتزداد من حيث الناس المجبرون على انتهاجها.
The benefit that's coming, the economic benefit, in terms of economic benefit, is it's getting backwards, and in terms of the numbers of people who resort to it, it's rising. So the solution, is because solutions are less and less available because the people are getting more unemployed, and the public sector as well as the private sector are unable to recruit because of the economic situation. So the traditional economy is in danger. But at the same framework, we speak about another issue that this profession is suffering from in relation to the different understanding or the different angles that it leads to social phenomena, including women and children as well. We've seen children as well conducting this business, and they tell you, if you ask them what are you doing, they would say we are supporting our families. So they're not doing it in tourism, or they're not doing it out of joy. They're doing it because they have to. It's necessity. The necessity side of this issue is very important. So the fact that you see women entering this sector, it is because they have to. And I see this getting higher and higher in numbers. And it is the representation of the workforce in Tunisia, because women woman is looking for social stability and economic stability, and it's a solution for her as an entrepreneur, in meaning that they try to have their own business, a small business, or they have to be part of this sector and a parallel sector. I hope that I answered your question. Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to move to the next question. Widad wants to ask a question. Please go ahead. Mrs. Widad. Let's go back to her later, because earlier she's asked me to ask a question. Do we have any other question from the participants? How can we change the way the people look at this sector? Does it include private initiatives that there are regulations to organize this sector? Do we speak about creativity as a street vendor? Creativity of a street vendor. I have an issue with this question. So the logic of entrepreneurship or the creativity, it is a novelty as an idea because it goes beyond the traditional economic lines. as an individual at the individual level, and it goes hand in hand with the point of the question. But I think that the part that is missing here is the general is the legal framework. As we said before, we're still suffering from lack of laws and legislations. When we say the way we look at this category, who are these categories? Who are the people included in this category? What are their rights and what are their duties? How can they or we defend their rights? As far as the organization or regulation side, we need a body that represents them and speaks of their issues in a united way. For example, why not we could have an organization, an association, or a union that speaks in their name, a labor union, let's say, that speaks their issues and voices their demands, because we've seen that every group geographically speaking spoke about their own problems. There is no coordination at the national level, and this weakens their voice in general. So I see that they should be, or the change has to start with the laws, also to appease the measures and bureaucracy, and then to unite or unify the lines of discourse. And I would add the idea of media, and I said this before during my presentation, that they are the gist of a joke, or the gist of a talk, which makes them even more a vulnerable category that is further marginalized as in media, because media speaks about them in such a comic way, an irresponsible way. So that needs to be changed as far as the media image, or the image that media is marketing for these people, and their because the way they see it is very important as far as their rights and so on and so forth. What is the next step in this after this work? What is the plan after this work? And this question was by Mrs. Widad Fandouri. Most importantly, the next step is to publish the search conducted by Mr. Monder, Professor Monder. It's going to be in Arabic and in English. So it's going to be published in our website. And then there are booklets that we have printed out this paper on. We could the different regions and associations could have a version, could have a copy. We're also thinking to have it distributed to the governmental institutions, let's say the ministries that are directly working on this topic. Also, the coordination is still ongoing, and the project is with this phase. We've finished the last link in this change, but we can start again in terms of another project, of course. Mr. Monder, if you wanted to add something in this regard, go ahead. The next plan should be with an activity, with a local activity, perhaps a type of coordination between the authorities that are inside on the ground, and all the intervening parties that could be a pressure point on the people in office, because we've heard a lot speaking about the inability or incapability of dealing with their problem. So it would be very good to have such discussions and dialogue with the local authorities. So it's not just with the representatives of this social category or economic category, but we also could have representation from the government, from the representatives of the local government. We had a representative of the local authority, and we called for a dialogue throughout the regions, not just one region. Thank you. There is a last question. I think it's a thought, not really a question. It's the speaker says creativity in everywhere for the street vendor because it needs capacities and skills that are needed, and unfortunately our training and educational institutions do not provide. Yes, exactly. We agree methodologically with this because the problems of this sector do not stop at the level of the at the local level. It's whether at the political level, social level, security level, they're all components of this crisis. So in order to in terms of my recommendations, I said that we should have a methodology, a participatory approach or methodology that can we include this activity or this work or this activity in the interests of the laws of the Startup Act, for example. I'm not really, I don't really know much about this on the on how practicable or how implementable this act is, but theoretically it could be possible legally to have it included in within the Startup Act, but this needs pressure because there should be political, there should be level at the work at the level of the civil society, at the activist level. It needs support by the decision makers. That is not, this kind of support is not there, but we need to gradually gain this support through media, through associations, through NGOs. Thank you. I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Ali Salman to say a couple of ideas before we end up. But I myself have a question to you all. You know that we've planned for this forum or this webinar for a year now, and the general situation in the country was not as we've seen before for a week now. When we thought about re-evaluation of the Arab Spring for after 10 years of the revolution, and we wanted to go back to the sparkle with which the Arab Spring started, which is Al-Bouazizis, and we wanted to shed the light on the street vendors, and we wanted to ask about their situation after 10 years. We've seen a lot of reproaches, but after what happened in the 25th of July, some consider that as a coup d'etat, and some would call it as a track correction measure. Do we consider the situation of the street vendors was not even a priority before? Is it? Do we think there is going to be is it going to be a priority, or are priorities going to be changed, or are all our priorities scattered and in this situation, political situation, and it could even threaten the essence of the revolution and the freedom of expression, political parties, and so on and so forth. Regardless of the crisis of how we name this or explain the situation or evaluate it, the social law, social contract says that if every change, the bill is paid by the most vulnerable categories. Logically, these guys are not going to benefit from this change, and they're not capable of protecting themselves out of the impact that is going to be bestowed on them. So in order to get there, we need to protect them legally. In particular, it's for certain that street vendors and commercial activities in general, they are not really they are the ones who are going to take part in important dialogues. For example, they're not this focal point of media or the public institutions and the institutions. The dialogue, especially in COVID, Corona, the conversation or the discussion is on the categories that are not working in offices or in legal or educational institutions or administrations. These workers or these vendors, they do not have a fixed or stable income or a salary. The category that these people are included in, the people included in this category include the street vendors, the precarious workers, and they are the ones who are looking at the situation from a different angle, from the angle of the people who are victims of this, or because they are unable to put food on their table. They are unable to satisfy their needs because they are confined in their homes, and they're not in a situation or an economic situation that is stable. Their purchase power is really deteriorated, and this goes back to the corruption that was mentioned by Mrs. Widad, and so on and so forth. And this leads to the fact that the entire category from people who with vulnerable or with low income, they find themselves in a very low situation, economic, psychological, social, and this goes back to the situation and on the ground, on reality, because it does impact them exceptionally, because they are, what happens to them leads them to be able to get that the various means do not get available to them. They find themselves locked down in a closed circle of void of marginalization. If there is great change in this situation, unless there's great change in this situation, their situation is not going to change. In reality, their situation is going to be the same. Now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Ali Salman to give his input or ideas before we conclude.
Thank you so much, everyone, Professor Munder and Amal and Vidit, and of course Tasneem. And also thank you to the interpreters who have done a great job in making sure that those who were not able to understand Arabic can understand the text and the discussion very clearly. I believe I have not missed anything. I'd like to share a general thought and, by way of some concluding remarks perhaps. And that I'd like to build on something which Vidit said, I think, in her remarks. That was, she said that she was mentioning about natural resources, and she said the phosphate, which could not be exploited, caused cancer, but it could not be converted, exploited for job creation. And I think that is extremely important observation. And that makes me think that, sitting from, of course, looking from outside, it is possible that not enough discussion has happened on the bigger economic reforms. Of course, street vendors is part of the economy. And in a growing economy, in a developed economy, you want to see less of them. You don't want to see everyone turning into street vendors' jobs, because this is not first preference job for the people. People resort to street vendors because the economy is not producing high quality, well-paying jobs. We saw the video, graduates are turning to street vending. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the hard work, doing hard work as such, but then people are forced to do the jobs, and when the state is not cooperative enough and there is no legal framework for them, then obviously we are asking for bigger social problems, which seem to be we seem to have increased rather than decreased over the last 10 years. And so I think there has to be a discussion about a paradigm shift, complete change in the economic policy direction of the country. So for instance, we talk about natural resources. Many countries tend to believe that government control is the best answer to manage the natural resources. And even some countries have nationalized the natural resources. Well, the ownership is one question, but you have to have involvement of private sector, investors, and give them incentives to operate so that you could create wealth from these resources. You can have well-paying jobs from these economic activities. You can have, rather than having very labor-intensive government, you can move to more modern government, which depends on the technology, let's say. Government should not be looked at as the job creation agency in a country. In an advanced economy, it is the private sector, which is the job creation center or vehicle of the job for graduates and for job seekers. And if it is not the case, and if people still look to the government, if people look more people think more in terms of economic rights as in the case of labor unions, then I think there has to be a very radical discussion about the economic policy. Lesser role of the government in the business, more open trade, more private sector involvement. These are the general trends which I can only mention, but I think this is where the world has experienced that it is generally beneficial for not only businesses, but also for the people at large, because ultimately the economic developments should lead to improvement of living standards. That should be the goal of the economic policy. It's not about just few people. And I think that is where perhaps we all need to do more work and point to what changes in the policies are required, and then create an atmosphere and create an intellectual environment where these ideas can be clearly presented, first of all, and then also debated both in the media, but also with the political class. That is perhaps something which we should be doing in the future, and I hope that we can have all of you as part of that journey in the future. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا سيد علي سلمان.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ali Salman. I think that we've reached the end of this.
شكرا للأستاذ منذر على بحثه الممتاز، وشكرا على تدخلاتكم السيدة أمل والسيدة وداد، وشكرا أيضا لكل من طرح سؤالا.
Everyone who asked the question, valuable question. Special thanks to the interpreters who spent with us over 2 hours and a half and 50 minutes in interpreting this meeting. I would like to remind you that all the documentation of this project, the project of revisiting or evaluating the Arab Spring and looking at the Bouazizis and the street vendors in Tunisia, all the content is going to be available on our website, islamandliberty.org. And we encourage you to look at it, to take a look at it on the website, to see the videos, to see all the content and the documents and researches. At the end of the day, they are academic researches, and we promise you that we're going to carry on our academic reports and researches regarding economic, political, religious affairs, and this is what we do in our Islam and Liberty. And we also thank Atlas Network for supporting this project, and also FNF organization that support this project as well as financially. I would like to thank you all. I will see you soon in further opportunities, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasneem.